Welcome once again to the Kohelet. This is the second in our series about water. We started this series on the basis of seeking to explain why water is of inalienable importance in science and spirituality and in all existence. Water is the basis of life. Some people take it as a philosophical statement, but it is actually a statement of science. In science, water is made of certain combinations, certain known combinations. For instance, water will never cease to be a combination of hydrogen and oxygen. The technical name for water is dihydrogen monoxide, which means two molecules of hydrogen, that is the di, and one molecule of oxygen, that is the monoxide. Now, in religion, some religions may want to give you the impression that water from a certain river, maybe River Jordan, is holier than the water from the River Niger, or holier than the water from River Ethiopia or River Orashi. And if you do not believe according to how the people who live in the vicinity of River Niger believe, or let's say River Jordan, then your belief system is wrong. But water is the same wherever you may come across it, and it is always made of the same elements, even though there may be like different concentrations of solutions in the water, because water is a universal solvent. But wherever you get water from, it is made of the same elements, and those elements have their origins in nature. It is the elements that make up the universe that make up every single thing in existence, and those elements are made of atoms. We have already discussed that, and it does not matter what combinations that you may have your water in. Your water may be full of salts, maybe sodium, or it may be full of some other elements that have dissolved in it, but it is yet water. And then another thing to bear in mind is that even the other elements that you would say is not water is made from water, and by the law of fractals, a thing is the same as that which it is made from. Now, our bodies are mostly made of water. We have dealt with that already. But there are portions of our body which we could say is not water. But the interesting thing is that those portions of our body, the organs or whatever other portion of our body that is not water, is, when you trace it, ultimately made from water, because there is no element that does not come from hydrogen. Hydrogen is the first element, and every other thing in physical existence is hydrogen that has been transformed in one form or the other to take the form of whatever it is that you think is not water. Then water is hydrogen in its primordial form. And if you check in the Bible, in Genesis 1:20-22, there it is said that God said that let the waters bring forth abundantly all creatures that have life. Man is definitely a creature that had life, and man's body is principally composed of water. So you find out that when water is being described as the source of all physical existence in the scriptures, it is indeed a statement of science because it is verifiable. It is verifiable science that it is the electromagnetic energy of the sun that seeded life in the waters, just as it is said in the Bible that the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and the world and they that dwell therein, and that the world was founded upon the oceans and established upon the rivers. Water is the basis of all life, and water has consciousness in itself. The atoms and molecules and subatomic waves and particles of water are conscious, which has already been established by the double slit experiment. So from the water being the source of life, you have many practices that have arisen in religion, that people have a superstitious, will I say, regard of those things without having a rational scientific understanding of them. Since all life forms began from water, you would observe that there is no religious ritual that does not directly or indirectly involve water. For example, we have already talked about baptisms and ablutions. There is no form of spiritual practice that can be carried out without involving water. Now, for the purposes of life, there is need for air. There is need for light in the form of electromagnetic energy, as in like that which the sun provides. There is need for food. There is need for shelter. Now, where does food come from? Food comes from the light of the sun that has been processed by plants using water and also the minerals in the soil. The soil itself is made from stardust. Water itself is what constitutes the earth, except that it is water that has been processed so that it has taken the form of the dust and the sand. Then when it comes to the issue of like regard for water, there is this statement in Igbo culture that Ndu mmiri ndụ azụ. Ndu mmiri ndụ azụ simply means the life of the water, the life of the fish. That is an indirect way of the Igbo telling themselves and all who care to listen that they understand that life is premised upon water, and that every living thing on earth, including human beings, are water beings, in the sense of water being the first home of all life forms. The Bible confirms that much in diverse ways. I have already made reference to Genesis 1:20-22. And you would also discover that the Pope and the bishops of Christianity, they put on a certain cap known as a mitre. The mitre originated, is an ancient symbol. It originated in ancient Africa and ancient Mesopotamia, ancient Babylonia. Those are the places where the mitre was first used. And the mitre is actually a symbol that depicts the open mouth of a fish. And it relates to what has been called over the generations, over the thousands of years that human beings have been aware of their special relationship with water. It has been used as a symbol of high priesthood, and it is called the mitre of Dagon. Dagon is from D-A-G, dag. Dag is fish in certain ancient languages. And Dagon is in fact mentioned in the Bible, but not mentioned in such a manner as you would understand that it is actually talking about the manner in which man came to be, the way man came to be. If you check carefully, amongst scientists when it comes to the theory of evolution. They didn't say that evolution means that there is no God. As a matter of fact, nobody who truly understands science can say there's no God, because the equivalent of saying that there's no God is the equivalent of saying that you don't exist. If you understand existence, you will know that man is but a manifestation of God. But because water is the first manifestation of God in the form of hydrogen, you would have to understand the processes that water went through before water took the form of the human entity. And that is actually what evolution is about. It's not that mindlessly that cells began to divide and on their own they now constituted things that you can see are very intricately and carefully planned. No, it is rather that in planning creation, there was a method that God adopted, and that method is the method of infusing certain substances with consciousness, and those substances are what you call particles and waves of energy. Sometimes they are referred to as sub-Planck or Planck field particles. They are spherical in nature. The way that the sun is spherical in nature, the sun is an orb, ORB, is a ball. That is how the things that make up the fabric of space-time, they are also spherical in nature. They are small, very small, so small that they are billions of times smaller than the atom. The atom is invisible to your eye, yet there are substances that are billions of times smaller than it, and it is the combination of these substances that give rise to the grid, the energy grid that the universe is. And it is from those spherical Planck scales that you now have atoms, and then from atoms you have fusion that leads to the creation of other elements. For example, the hydrogen atom has just a proton and a neutron, but when hydrogen atoms fuse, then you have helium atom, and the helium atom is the first time that you have a neutron. Now the proton, the electron, and the neutron form a triangle. It forms the trinity, and that is why when you look at designs of physical things, triangles must come in. You have platonic solids, which requires that certain shapes are taken by energy before it manifests in certain forms. One of the things that are always important is the triangle. That is why there is so much use of triangle in spiritual symbolism and religious symbolism. You would see frequently a triangle with sometimes a circle with triangles within it. They are all trying to point out to the manner in which the universe is composed and comprised of waves and particles of energy, which are conscious, because those are the mediums of consciousness through which life is, will I say, seeded and lived in the universe, in the material universe. So, in knowing about Dagon, you may now also think of what is the Vesica Piscis. The Vesica Piscis is also called the bladder of the fish. Vesica means bladder, Piscis means fish, and the Vesica Piscis is a portal that is created by the intersection of two circles of the same radius. The middle of that intersection is a portal which matter can proceed from the field of energy into physical form. And the Vesica Piscis is used in religious symbology all over the world, but in such a manner that most people do not understand what it is, because the Vesica Piscis approximates to the vagina, and there are multiple icons that show the Vesica Piscis, which the unsuspecting beholder of those icons will not be aware that what is being beheld is the vagina. There is also the obelisk, that's like in the St. Peter's Square at the Vatican. There's an obelisk at the center of the square. That obelisk was taken from the temple of Karnak in Egypt long time ago. Then you also have the obelisk taken from Africa in Washington D.C., in New York, in Paris, in London, in Buenos Aires, and several other power centers around the world. Now, it is important that we should find out, why are these people so obsessed with symbols of African spirituality that are contained in ancient temples? In this regard, it is important to also know that Egypt of today, where you see people who look like Europeans, is not the Egypt of the ancient times. European scholars have all admitted that ancient Egypt is a black African civilization, with many of the people who constituted the population coming from East Africa and West Africa, Central Africa, and such other places. The fact is that the civilization of ancient Africa was a single civilization with different branches, emphasizing perhaps on different aspects of the civilization. But you would have observed, if you really have studied African history and spirituality, that Ra as the sun is basically common to all Africans. In one form or the other, you will see Ra in the languages of the people, such as, like in Hausa, Rana is afternoon. In Igbo, in some parts of Igbo land, Ora is the sun. And in Ghana, Accra is Ark of Ra. And Ark of Ra is an image that is often seen in the walls, in the temples in ancient Egypt, depicting the sun sailing on a boat across the sky. Why a boat? Because the ancient Africans were aware that the universe is not just based on water, but that the universe is an ocean. And whatever happens for the sake of there being existence in the universe, that thing involves water in some form. That is why Ra has a boat or an ark on which Ra sails across the sky every day, bringing life and sustenance to human beings on earth. You must have heard of the statement by Pope Francis in Indonesia that has caused a lot of controversy, particularly amongst Christians, where he said that there is only one God and that all religions are like languages approaching God, and that there is no religion that is superior to the other, and that we are all children of God. That statement, I can assure you, is based upon Pope Francis' understanding of science. Science has shown that we are all essentially manifestations of the same source. All the water in the universe comes from one source. That one source is God. And the consciousness that is the consciousness of every living thing, including human beings, animals, plants, they are all contained in water. They are all packaged by water and in water. In other words, water is the source, the medium of divine consciousness. And all the water in existence comes from just a single source and is the same as that single source. So it does not matter how emotionally hot you may have felt by the Pope's statement. It does not matter what you have believed all these years, thinking that you have a religion that will take you to heaven, and other people, because they do not believe like you, they are going to hellfire and they cannot belong to God. It does not matter. Those things are simply where religion has deceived human beings into believing that that which is one is multiple and they are irreconcilable. all the water in the universe comes from one source. This is a statement of science. It is verifiable. And that source from which all water in the universe comes from is conscious. And that source is also consciousness itself. And it is only through that source that you have consciousness and possess consciousness. So it is that single source in quantum mechanics that is said to exist as a unified quantum field from which all things are manifesting. And that at the quantum level, there has never been and will never be a separation of the essences of that single source. And it is that single source that even scientists have called God. Max Planck, who the Europeans regard as the formulator of the quantum theory, said that as a man who has dedicated all his life to clearest sciences, that he can be imagined not to be a man who is a dreamer and who does not know what he's talking about. That there is a mind which is the matrix of all matter, a mind behind all vibrations of atoms, a mind that causes all physical matter to appear, and that mind obviously is the mind of a conscious and intelligent being, and that conscious and intelligent being is the same that religions have over the time referred to as God. And he said that he himself has no option than to also concede that in fact that you can call that divine intelligence God. So when people think about God and they think about an old man in the sky, and they think that because of that they can debunk the existence of God, and I think that because of that the concept of God is for those who are ignorant, well, I can now tell you without fear of contradiction that those who think that there is no God are the ones who are actually uneducated. They may have been schooled, but they are not educated, because when you are educated, you will realize that each expression of consciousness, such as myself and as yourself, is simply an expression of the singular intelligent consciousness that is the unified conscious field, the quantum field, from which all things emerge, and which is also you. That is the reason why it is said that man is divine. And that is also the reason why it is said that of a man, he can say that God is my father and me, I am my father, are one. Thank you once again for joining us in the Kohelet. We have just begun this journey, and we can assure you that we intend even to go to places where the people who have told human beings that there is no God, where they fear to tread, and even those who tell you that there is God but give you an impression of God that cannot be the real God. We will, in the next lesson, take a look at what is called egregores. Egregor is spelled Egregore. People have set up egregores for themselves in various cultures and religions, and formed the impression that the egregores that they have created is God. There is one God who created all things and who controls all things, the universal mind. But religions and cultures have created egregores for themselves and are confused into believing that what they have created is God. Any God that is mine and not yours is an idol. Any God that is mine and not yours is an idol. Any God that discriminates amongst countries and nations and peoples and races is not God, is but an idol, is an egregor. Thank you once again for joining us in the Kohelet. We will indeed explore greater things together on this channel. May God bless you. Thank you.